Hi, this session is on order of operations, and it can get tricky, so the more you practice, the better you become at it. And I like to use BIDMAS. The most common one that that you've probably used or heard of is BIDMAS. And all of these are the same thing. There's also BIDMAS as well, so I'll write that one up as well. You may have heard of this one. And you notice that the one letter that is changing is this one here. That's an I, that's an O, that's an E. And they actually refer to the same thing. In this case, I stands for index numbers. That's the one I like to use. And remember, index numbers, if I have 2 to the power of 3, the power, which is 3, can be called the index number. The O here, if I was to use BIDMAS, it stands for powers of, or of. So we know it stands for of, but the actual word should be power of. So I can say 2 to the power of 3. That's why I don't like to use this one, because O doesn't just mean of, it actually means power of, and that's why students get confused. Now, BIDMAS, we can also call this little 3. So we've got index number, power of. It can also be called an exponent. Now, this is a word you use more in year 10 in VCE, but keep in mind that an index number can be called quite a few things, and exponent is one of them. But it all refers to the same thing, this power here, okay? And we know that B is brackets, I, in this case, is index number, D is division, we've got multiplication, addition, and subtraction. And these two operations are equal, and these two operations are equal. So we have used this before, and now let's apply it to a few questions. Now, the next thing I want you to do is to try these questions. Even if you get stuck, just have a go anyway. Now, please make sure, don't write all the questions down and then try and squeeze in working out. Write one question, do the working out, and then move on to the other one. It's important that you show clear working out, and remember there is one equal sign per line. And remember, you can't just use a calculator. So with the first one, it looks pretty basic, but please make sure we work from left to right. So don't go 11 minus 6 first. Sometimes you get the same answers, but other times you won't. Okay, so 9 plus 11 gives us 20, and then 20 minus 6. Oh, we'll do it step by step, sorry. So our first step is 9 plus 11, which is 20, and then bring down the minus 6. And our final answer then is 20 minus 6, which gives us 14. So you can see how, even though a basic question like this, you can show working out. And that is, once you do one step, just stop there, write the answer, and write down what's left. Now you notice with this one, our operations are multiplication and also division. Now we know that these are also equal operations. I don't do division first, I just work from left to right. There's no plus or take away, so I can just work from left to right. So don't go 7 divided by 2 first. You might still get the same answer, but like I said, left to right. So 3 times 2, we'll start off with that, is 6. So I've got 6, then times 7, then divided by 2. So my next step, 6 times 7 is 42, divided by 2. And finally, 42 divided by 2, half of 42 is 21. And that's it. For our next question, check your operations. You see we have addition here and then multiplication. And we know that multiplication comes first. Okay, if it helps, write down I'll do it here, just in case I forget. So we've got BIDMAS, and I'll do 2 sort of arrows. They're equal operations, and they're equal operations. So in this case, I'm going to put my own brackets in to remind myself that I have to do multiplication first. So 7 times 3 would give me 21. So now I'll just write down what I have left. So 1 equal sign, and then 2, there's a plus here, so plus, and 7 times 3 is 21. And our final answer will be 2 plus 21, which gives us 23. Now our next one might trick you at first. We'll see how you've gone. So we've got multiplication here, addition here, and then multiplication again. So the trick is put brackets around the multiplication symbol and the numbers next to it. So we've got 4, and then 4, so 4 times 4, plus just sits there, and here we've got 6 times 2. And that's telling me I have to work out 4 times 4, and then 6 times 2, and then add the results. So I can do some working out up here. 4 times 4 I know is 16, and 6 times 2 is 12. Now I'm just going to stop there and write my working out. So I've got 16 now plus 12. Okay, and it's important to do this to show your teacher that you are working it out properly and thinking about what you're doing. And then 16 plus 2 leaves us with 28. And we're done. Now with our next one, it's starting to look a bit more complicated, but it's just as easy. Now we know that with BIDMAS, we always start with brackets. So these brackets have been placed here for us. So I'll work inside my brackets. Now please be careful, look inside the bracket and also check your operations. We have addition here and multiplication. So I must now do 2 times 3 first and then plus 1 in the bracket. So that's going to be my first step to work out what's in the bracket. So 2 times 3 I know is 6, okay? And I'll do one more step because I'm still in the brackets. So now that that's taken care of, I go 1 plus 6, and the whole thing in the brackets gives me 7. So now I'll stop there and write my next step. So 5 plus 2 minus, the brackets are now gone, and the number that I was left with is 7 plus 5. Okay, so it's important that you did multiplication first. Otherwise, you would have had a different answer. If you went 1 plus 2 to give you 3, you would have had 3 times 3 and a 9 here. And now my next step is I've got addition, subtraction, addition. They are equal operations, so I'll just work from left to right. So my next step is to go 5 plus 2, which is 7. So then I've got 7 minus 7 plus 5. My next step is 7 minus 7, which is 0 plus 5. And 0 plus 5 is just 5. So the answer is positive 5. Now next question, you notice we have a power here. So no brackets, but BIDMAS, I for index numbers. So that's the first thing we should do. I've got addition, multiplication, but this is my first step, and that is 2 squared is actually 4. So I'll write down what I have left. So 8 plus, it's now a 4 times 4. Now be careful, if you went 8 plus 4 to give you 12, that's a mistake. We know that multiplication comes first, so I'll have to do 4 times 4 first. And 4 times 4 is 16, so I'm left with 8 plus 16, and 8 plus 16 leaves me with 24. Done. Now, next set of questions, you may notice they're starting to look a little bit more complicated, and that's mainly because you're starting to see negative numbers. So have a go at these 5 questions, and once again, make sure you show clear working out, and we'll go through them. So with our first one, I'm just missing something. You may notice that there are 2 sets of brackets, and in case you've forgotten, whenever you have 2 sets of brackets, you basically work from inside and out. So in these brackets here, these sort of rectangular ones, you can see there's another set of brackets, and in there it's got 1 plus 3. So I must do this bit first. 1 plus 3 leaves me with 4. So that's the first thing I had to do. So now I've got 2 times 2 plus 4. Now we don't go 2 plus 4 next. Okay, the brackets are now gone. Our next thing is to work from left to right. So just in case it looks confusing, I'll just write it out again. So 2 plus 6 times, and in these brackets we've got 2 times 2 plus 4. So we got rid of one set of brackets, but remember there are still brackets here. And so now in the brackets, multiplication comes first. So 2 times 2 is 4. That's done. And then 4 plus 4 is 8. So the whole thing inside the brackets left me with 8. So let's just write down what we have left. So 2 plus 6 times, and then the 8 is what we have left. Our next step is we've got addition and multiplication. So what comes first? We know multiplication comes first. So I must go 6 times 8 first. That leaves me with 48. So my almost there. So we have 2 plus, brackets now gone, and we're left with 48. And finally, 2 plus 48, that is 50. And that should have been your final answer. With our second question, once again, you notice there are brackets, but now there are also negative values everywhere. So your negative number skills come into place. But first, work with one thing at a time, and we know we start off with our brackets. Now look inside our brackets, and you notice there are 2 negatives sitting together. So those 2 negatives, I know I will change to a positive. And that leaves me with minus 2 plus 8. And you can use your calculator, but minus 2 plus 8, because one's a negative and one's a positive, the difference is, well, 8 minus 2 is 6, so I'll have 6 in my answer. And because 8 is larger as a number and it's positive, I'm left with a positive 6. Okay, so minus 2 plus 8 was just 6. So the brackets are now taken care of. So let's write down what we have left. We've got minus 9 times minus 2 plus, it's not a negative 6, it's just a positive 6. And we know the positive can stay invisible. Now our next step is, well, what operations do you see? We've got multiplication and addition, and it's multiplying a negative 2. So we have to do multiplication first. So I'll put brackets around. This 9 is a negative 9 times a negative 2. Now, I know that when I'm multiplying 2 negatives, an even amount becomes positive. So minus 9 times minus 2 is positive 18. And don't forget the plus 6. So finally, 18 plus 6 will leave us with 24. And that's how easy it was. Now this question here, question 3, and I'll put 4 down. The reason why you've just got sort of one thing for each question is to make sure you understand the importance of these brackets here. So see how this power 2 is outside the bracket and inside we have a negative 2? This is saying, because of those brackets, it's saying minus 2 times minus 2. I want you to put this in your calculator with brackets, and you should end up with, well, we know minus 2 times minus 2 is a positive 4. That's the answer for this question. Now, I want you to just have a go and put it in your calculator again, but without brackets. So put it in like this. Imagine the question was, so imagine we had another question, minus 2 squared, okay? No brackets, put it in your calculator without brackets, and you'll notice the calculator will give you a minus 4, okay? Instead of a positive 4. That's because there were no brackets. If there are no brackets, that 2 only belongs to this 2 here. So it's saying 2 times 2 is 4, but it's saying there is still just one negative sitting there. The negative is not being squared. But in brackets, the negative's included. So we're saying 2 times 2, or 2 2's, and then 2 negatives. So minus 2 times minus 2. Whereas this one down here was just saying a minus sits there, and then 2 times a 2, which gives us a negative 4. Okay, if that confuses you, it's okay because it is tricky. But just remember, if there are brackets, you can use your calculator, but make sure you put brackets in your calculator and then a squared. So this one down here, because there are brackets, it's saying minus 2 times minus 2 times minus 2. And I can see I have 1, 2, 3 negatives. It's an odd amount of negatives. So my final answer will be a negative, and 2 times 2 times 2 is just 8. So you should have had negative 8 for number 4. So this question here, I think there was supposed to be a negative there, so I'll squeeze in a negative 4. Sorry. Once again, we can see we have our brackets, so that's our first step. So 6 plus 2 is 8. So the brackets are now gone, and we're left with 8 divided by a negative 4. So that's really a positive 8. It's invisible. So a positive divided by a negative is going to be a negative. And 8 divided by 4 is just 2. So you should have had negative 2. So I want you to try this one last question before we finish up for this session. So with this question, you notice we have a set of brackets and inside another set of brackets, and you notice that it's got that -2 in there and it's being squared. So our first step is to work out what is -2 in brackets squared. We know it's actually saying -2 times -2. So this part here will give me a +4. And then I'm left with 2 plus 4, which is 8. So the whole thing, well, actually we'll do step by step. So equals, we've got 8 plus bracket 2 plus, which it's now 4, close bracket, times -3. And now 2 plus 4, that is 6. So we're left with 8 plus, the brackets are now gone, so 6 times a -3. And we now check our operations. It's addition and multiplication. Multiplication comes first, so I must do 6 times -3 first. So I'm left with 8 plus, so 6 times -3, one negative is going to give me a negative answer. And 6 times 3, that is 18. And the brackets are now gone. So just remember we've got a -18, and we're going to bring that down here. So it's going to be 8 plus a -18. And by doing that, you can see a positive and a negative are now sitting together because the brackets have gone. So a positive and a negative sitting together gives us a negative. So we now have 8 minus, or take away 18. And we can see that because we are starting with a small number and subtracting a larger number, our answer is going to be negative. Okay? And just work out the difference between them. 18 take away 8 is just going to give us 10. But if you get stuck with negative numbers, use your calculator to help you with that. So hopefully that's helped you revise and remember how to apply the order of operations and how we can use BIDMAS to help us. Thank you.